Welcome, YouTube. Welcome to Sunaru Gaming. This talk with Graham Pike, creator of New Earth magazine, is around Sega. It's our Sega Talk. So, Graham, I've got a question for you. What was your first impression of Sega? Did you see any games in the arcade at first, or was it in a game shop? Or
No, basically, I think it's probably about 1990 that's when it was just come out. So I finally sort of taken an interest in. This is my first console I was looking for, and I think at the time the Super Nintendo hadn't actually come out over here. So you had the Master System, the Nintendo Entertainment System. SNES wasn't quite out, although it was due out, and this Mega Drive. So I knew nothing about consoles at the time. So, but I liked the look of the Mega Drive. I'd heard of Sega, although I hadn't really had an experience of what they were like. I just looked around in shops and went in and talked about it like you do, asked people what they thought. And and that's when I got it. Initially, my initial thing was to play role-playing games on it, but it wasn't really an advanced enough machine to enjoy. I mean, there were a few. I mean, my first one was called Sword of Vermilion, which was quite enjoyable, but a bit slow and a bit, not as exciting as some games. My initial impression, funny enough, so having it on telly and was a good thing. Plus, the way they presented it was, like the Sega coming up, and it was like, oh, this is really good, and it's, I think it sort of hooks you in quite quickly with its. They were trying to make it, professional presentation and like a film or something, but that was my initial impression was, oh, this is really good,
What did you think about Sonic? And when
Sonic, I did that. I liked it. I've never been a massive fan of the sort of herring along horizontal sort of platform games. Perhaps I'm just not good enough at them. I enjoyed it, and it was just like I'd never played many video games apart from in arcades. So it was different, but I never got hooked on the Sonic games. Although we've discussed in the past, there was a Sonic game called Sonic R, which was basically a racing game.
Brilliant game.
So I've heard you mention it, and I just really took to that. I think that was on the Saturn, and I just really took to it. It was it made funny because he's not using vehicles; he's running along. Either him or other characters you can play, but it was just really good because you had quite a lot of variety of places you could run, and it was a great little game. I really enjoyed that.
I think that it was a fantastic game. I've still got it actually in the cabinet. And I think that what seems really strange to me is the modern Sonic games, they're all kart races like Mario Kart and things like that, which seems really odd to me because Sonic R is a great example. Yeah, exactly. It's a great example. And okay, Sonic's faster than the others. So, I mean, I suppose you'd have to scale it, and maybe some of them have slightly different special abilities that slow them down, or maybe they get a head start in front of Sonic. But I mean, the Sonic R game itself worked really well.
It did.
I remember watching you play it, and then eventually I got it. It took a long time for me to collect all the emeralds and unlock Super Sonic. You just whiz off.
I mean, it's just one of those games you spent a lot of time playing because it got you into it. You wanted to complete everything and do stuff, and I really, it was my favourite Sonic game, I think. I mean, I remember when the Sonic games came out on the Dreamcast, and suddenly you had a platform game, but you're running into a screen. A lot of people didn't like that, and I think probably gameplay-wise, it didn't work quite as well as the old 2D running. But it was just so amazing to see the screen whizzing by and all these lovely 3D landscapes on the Dreamcast.
Sonic Adventure.
I think I had 1 and 2 of those. But
I really enjoyed those.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was a game. It was an experience as well. The experience was a lot better than the 2D, but perhaps gameplay-wise, it wasn't quite as accurate or as
it's a little bit janky. But I mean, like you said, it was playable and it looked really nice.
Yeah, I was thinking about one bit. You had a fishing section as well, which was
but was it Big the Cat?
And, so I like little bits like that, but I quite enjoyed those games. Yeah, as you say, they could have been better, but I enjoyed them.
Yeah.
But not. Yeah. There was another really good Sonic game on the Saturn called Sonic 3D.
Oh yeah.
It was like a isometric. It was off Flicky's Island or something like that. And basically, that was a really good game as well. I think that comes almost as good as Sonic R. It was like isometric view down. So it wasn't 3D running into the screen. It was like how you viewed the thing. And again, a lot of people didn't like it, but I thought it was a really good game. Great music. I think you had a Mega Drive version and the Saturn version. The Saturn version had really good music on it. It was a really enjoyable game. I said a game I got really played a lot. And it was challenging. You had lots of little obstacles. It wasn't a speed game, although it could run around fast as always. But it was like an exploratory type of game, really. Yeah, that was that one, 3D on the Saturn and Sonic R, were my personal favourites by a long way. Although Sonic purists will say they're rubbish and you want the original, horizontal. But we're each to their own. All I know is I played those two games a lot longer than I did the other one, so that must mean something, mustn't it?
Yeah,
if you stick with it and you keep going until you've completed, that means the game's won. The game has got you. If after about half an hour, I can't be bothered. It's too hard, or I'm just bored. Then it hasn't. It's failed, really.
I agree with you. I think the playability of those games is a lot more. I think the original few Sonic games where you're just running along, eventually just sprint into something that kills you, and you're jumping half the time. You're just running and jumping. And
going underwater, that was good.
Yeah.
That was quite loud. But yeah, I know it had it. It was a good game in its way, but it had its challenges. But no, it didn't grab me. But I think the biggest, as we're talking about, the biggest thing about Sega is they let us down, because back in the day, you tended to be a bit like football teamish. I was Sega. You either Sega or Nintendo, really. And all the sort of gamers you say, well, serious games like the Super Nintendo or the NES before it. But I just sort of started off with the Mega Drive, and I was a Sega man then. So same with the Saturn and the Dreamcast were then against Sony more than Nintendo, but they lost those two. In this country, I think the Mega Drive was probably more popular, but they just mismanaged those two consoles, which were really good consoles in their way. But they mismanaged the Saturn by thinking they could just do a 2D machine, and the last minute realising it should be 3D, and whizzing in a lot of processor and making it hard to program. And then with the Dreamcast, they didn't bother putting DVD on it. So people, because I remember reading ages ago, the DVDs weren't very popular in Japan until the PS2 came out, and then they get the games go, and they got a built-in DVD, so then DVD started to sell better over there. And they really let themselves down, which is a shame, because Dreamcast was a great console, and I still, even now it's one of my favourites. Probably after the Neo Geo, my favourite console.
It's got some fantastic games on it, and a lot of them import, obviously.
Yeah, because the imports went on for years after, and for my personal benefit, having I think once I wasn't playing the Neo Geo, I sold my console like late 90s. The shoot 'em up arcade game became my preferred, and you couldn't beat the Dreamcast for that. They just had one after another import shoot 'em ups that are being converted by some really good programmers. And it was a choice machine, so almost one a month or something like that, which doesn't sound a lot, but you were getting quality shoot 'em ups converted from the arcade and looking as good as the arcade, in some cases better.
Yeah, and you had full controller slots as well, which apart from the N64, PlayStation didn't have. You had to buy one of those silly converter things that didn't always work.
And you had like a memory card you could slide into the controller, which was different. Yeah. And you could play little games on it if you're that way inclined, which I don't think. I think I might have played something on it once, but to see what it was like. But it was a great console, and it's a shame that commercially it really killed off Sega's hardware.
Yeah.
I think the only thing they brought out after that was the Pico Advanced or something like that in 2000 or something. But
they made such bad business decisions. And from what I've read and looked into, it sounds like Sega Japan and Sega America were almost at odds with each other a lot, and that probably didn't help with things. Yeah, and it's a shame.
There was the Master System around before the Mega Drive, which I never owned one of those, but I actually won a game for it. I remember I used to have these games magazines. There was a Spot the Difference competition for a Sega Master game. I can't remember what it was. It was that one that had the main character was a giant tomato with shades on. And,
yeah.
Anyway, that I can't remember. But anyway, I just thought, so I just sent it in, and I won it. But I thought, well, even if I win it, I could just trade it in for something else, because it was still, which is odd, really, because I didn't have the system.
In
fact, and they even had a game system before that called the SG-1000 in the 80s, early 80s, Sega. Again, I've only ever seen a picture of one. They didn't make it over here. It's just Japanese. But that was another thing. Even with the Mega Drive, I soon became aware that in America it was called the Genesis, and in America and in Japan, they had a slightly different console. The fact that it ran at 60 hertz instead of 50 hertz, so you didn't have the borders on top of it. Again, I didn't buy import stuff with the Mega Drive, but that's what got me aware of it. There was a lot of independent game shops back in the early 90s, and so you just go in there and they have, it's running full screen. That looks good. So it always seems more impressive, and there were just games that you didn't get. But all you could play it on the UK system. Just the cartridge was slightly bigger, I think. That's what got started to get me interested in import stuff. It's slightly better than ours. Plus, there's games that just aren't coming out over here.
So you get the tiniest amount compared to obviously Japan, but also other parts of the world. I actually had a Master System.
Did you?
I had. Did I buy it or did someone give it to me? So you bought me my first console, which was Sega Saturn, and then someone left because my dad used to do electronics at the time, they left an old Mega Drive here because it wasn't working. He couldn't get it to work, and then years later I was fiddling around with it and banging it, and the bit that says don't open and don't move, plugged it in and it worked. I also had a Mega Drive from that point as well, and I had Master System had Sonic, the first Sonic game inbuilt, then I got Taz and Aladdin and Gauntlet was on it, the very first, or one of the first.
I think it was Alex the Wonder Boy or something.
Kid.
That was one of the built-in ones when it first came out. But they would have changed it as they went along. But no, I never owned one. I've never had a console with a built-in game like that before.
Very, very solid little controller, but nowhere near as impressive as the rest of the Sega consoles. Obviously, the Mega Drive, like you said, was a lot better.
And it improved as the years went by. And you look at the graphics on some of the later games; they really knew they learned how to get the best out of it.
What sort of games did you have on the Mega Drive at the time?
Oh yeah, I can remember what it was good for was Streets of Rage, which you mentioned the other day. It was like that was one of the first games that I really got into on that, and obviously its sequels. And if you get Streets of Rage, you've got to get Golden Axe, haven't you? So if you've ever played that, but it was a primitive game, but it was fun. It was slightly addicting, and it was just a lot of fun. Sort of. I remember you had like a dwarf character, a barbarian, and a female warrior. But what the worst thing about that was you could quite often jump off the terrain and you just pile down a big hole, and that's the end of your character and end of that credit or whatever. So but that was good. And slightly later on, there was a great Treasure, the developers we mentioned before. They did Gunstar Heroes, which was a real sort of classic game, and a lot of people really appreciated that. It was an unusual shoot 'em up. In fact, it was a two-player car. It was two little anime sort of chaps running along, but they had all sorts of different weaponry, but it wasn't like visceral sort of. It was just very clever. Lots of different ways of how you didn't just overcome everything by blaster or dropping a bomb. There was all sorts of little maneuvers you had to pull off, and it was really wacky but really good. I think they also built that on the Nintendo's Game Boy Advance or something like that.
Okay.
I know, sorry, because you used to be able to get on the Nintendo Cube. You could have a thing you could attach to the bottom of the cube, which had like a you could slide in Game Boy Advance games, which I had, and then therefore you could play them through your telly. And I got Gunstar Heroes on that, which was quite a buzz. And as we've mentioned before, there was a kind of sequel, although it wasn't a sequel. It was Guardian Heroes instead of Gunman. I think you mentioned
great game. Yeah, you sent me that. I've still got that.
Oh, right.
That's one of my favourite games ever. Yeah.
I mean, it was just so bizarre. I suppose initially I played it. I was slightly disappointed because I thought it was going to be Streets of Rage, but more anime. But it's a completely different type of game, and the totally wacky sort of attacks you do. You just have to sort of go mad with it. So, it was a good game. But it took.
It's quite a long game as well. There's a lot to unlock, and I think they even remade the game for Nintendo. They remade the game for Xbox. It's good, but it's not quite the same. It would have been nice to just do what they did with, like the Neo Geo games, and just port the original system, because it's a lot of playability in that, and you can unlock things.
Yeah, they did the same on there's a Dreamcast game, which I don't know if you've played, called Jet Set Radio.
Yeah, got that.
Brilliant game, and that's it was basically, as you know, it's like inline skating around the thing, doing graffiti and other things. But it was so well done. And then they ported it over to one of the Xboxes, which was a more advanced machine. So they increased the graphics significantly. But the game, instead of them, they made the gameplay too easy. They ruined the game because normally you had like limited time to do graffiti because somebody would either arrest you or beat you up or something. So you had to go back. You had to do some moves like left, right, stand, round, and then your graffiti picture came up and you moved on. But with I think with the Xbox version, it's just like press a button and it does it. So that was the big thing, was I've got to get this done before somebody gets me, And it was, but that was a great world to explore. It's like a little urban environment. But yeah, that was a game that didn't improve by being taken to a slightly more powerful console. It actually got worse. It got worse. The original one was a real classic, one of the best games on the Dreamcast.
I suppose that's where it was moving away from, not to touch too much on the arcadey talk stuff that we've done, but it's the original Jet Set Radio had that sort of arcadey feel. There was a challenge to it, and I think that when the original Xbox came out, and a lot of people keep referring to it as sort of the Dreamcast 2, and that's a whole other thing altogether, where it's sort of meant to be a version of the Dreamcast arcade thing that they had in the arcades, but I don't know how much of that's actually true.
Well, the Naomi or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know enough about it. Maybe I should have researched it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think there was a Naomi board which was something like the Dreamcast, but perhaps some more bevel, I don't know. But no, I never heard the Xbox being called the Dreamcast 2.
A lot of people are doing that now. If you have a look on the internet.
I mean, the only one I've been a fan of is the 360, because again, when the Dreamcast was starting to fade, even in Japan, they started putting all these brilliant ports onto the 360. And there's like, I don't know, it must be more than a dozen really, really good sort of shoot 'em ups from the Japanese arcades on the 360. Akai Katana, Death Smiles, and games like that. They're just fantastic. I mean, they're, as I said to you before, they're like what the Neo Geo could have been. Since Sega died out, I seem to have stuck more with PlayStation stuff. I've had 1, 2, 3, and 4. Whereas I did have the original Xbox, but I did sell it on, and the 360 I've still got that.
So what main Sega franchise got better or worse with each generation?
What do you mean?
So, for example, we were talking about using Sonic as an example. The first Sonic was sort of running along and saying that wasn't so much appealing, and then when it came onto the Saturn, it opened it up a bit more, and then even more so on the Dreamcast. Are there any other Sega franchises that you felt got better or worse when they came out on the later consoles?
I can't think of any, to be honest. I mean, no, I can't think of any, to be honest. What did you have in mind, any in particular?
Well, Sonic was a good example. I'm just having a quick look at the list of games I've got to see whether I can answer that question myself. Virtual On's a good one, because you had it on the Saturn and then the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
So did you,
and also
do you feel
on
like
the 360 did a collector's edition, and it's got like a really good version of the game. You got all the sort of artwork and box and lots of stuff on it. That was good as well. But yeah, obviously the Dreamcast was much better than the Saturn. No, the Saturn was good for its time. The Dreamcast was a big progression on, I think, and it could do. I mean, the Saturn wasn't brilliant at 3D stuff. It tended to be quite pixelated, even compared with the PS2. I think it was quite a good 2D machine. And although Virtual On Software was quite good on it, but the games I remember, there's probably the most sought after and expensive game for quite a few years on Saturn was called Radiant Silvergun. Have you ever heard of it? It was a treasure shoot 'em up. You've probably heard of Ikaruga, have you?
It rings a bell.
That was on the Dreamcast. I think there was an Xbox version, and I think there may have been a Nintendo version as well. But that was a sequel to Radiant Silvergun, which was like a watershed sort of. It wasn't a watershed about it was a vertical shoot 'em up. But being Treasure, they just did some brilliant little additions where you had to shoot, and the quality of the graphics, and it was a really classic. I can remember when it first came out, I got it, and when I sold it on years ago, I got more for it than I paid for it by quite a long way. and now you have to pay quite a lot of money. There's still a few around, but it was a real classic from Treasure, and Ikaruga was like a sequel to it, and I don't think it was better. It had some good bits in Ikaruga. A lot of people were big fans of it. I think Radiant Silvergun was the better game. Rico Rico looks a bit prettier because it's on a better console. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was. I could think, like, in general, shoot 'em ups, the old-fashioned traditional shoot 'em ups, either horizontal or vertical, they certainly progressed. Although, as we were talking about, Streets of Rage never really made it onto the other consoles.
Yeah, it is very strange. I know they've just released the fourth one,
Yeah,
but there's obviously
that's a
quite
bit
a
late
large
now, isn't it?
gap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
3 came out in the, what, 90s, mid-90s?
Mm.
Whereas it's a long gap, and as you say, as we said before, a lot of people remember it fondly, and Golden Axe and that, but they tried to revitalise it, but they never did it. They never sort of continued with that genre.
Mm.
But shoot 'em ups, I mean, there were some great vertical and horizontal traditional shoot 'em ups on the Saturn. There were some decent ones on the Mega Drive, but the Saturn really came into its own. And there's another treasure game on the Saturn called Silhouette Mirage. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
I haven't, no.
I think came out in about '97, and it was unusual because you had this character, and it was like a split personality, and it's something they carried on with it a little bit in Ikaruga as well, because you could shoot 2 colours out of him. It was like a 2D adventure, but a shoot 'em up as well, and it was like a little bod, and I can't remember what the colours were, dark purple and red or something like that, 2 different, and certain things killed certain things. So if you had if you had an enemy that was of a certain type, probably purple, I'm guessing, you used the purple weapon. But you had to flip between the 2, and it had lots of really good ideas in it, and it was a little typical, slightly surreal sort of Japanesey approach. But yeah, that was a really classic game.
Do you remember Tempest? Tempest on the Saturn.
Tempest 2000. Well, that originally came out, as I remember, on the Atari's Jaguar.
Oh, really?
It was its one big selling game. You know, the Jaguar was a failure. But that was a reasonable console. It didn't have the software. But yeah, the Tempest 2000, which was, because it was originally an arcade game just called Tempest. Anyway, so yeah, Tempest 2000 was on the Jaguar, and I think it made it to the Saturn as well. But yeah, that was I've mentioned, I think it was just the other day, about one of my other favourite games on the Saturn was called Astal, ASTAL, which is a real cute, brilliant platform game, basically running left to right. He had all sorts of unusual abilities. He had this little sort of pet bird that used to come out, and it was just had this little magical sort of atmosphere to it, and the graphics were beautiful, great music. It was just a real experience.
Was that Japanese game, or did it come
Japanese
out?
game? They did do a US or UK version, but again, I think from what I remember reading at the time, it was a slightly watered down version. I had the Japanese version, and it was, you didn't need to read the text on it, but it was it was just a really good game. I remember you just start off, you just sort of run along, then there's this whole sort of screen full of bats coming, and all you can do is just duck down under this little ledge you can duck there, and it's just lots of, it's not just fighting, it's like avoid, a little bit of strategy. But yeah, it was a game that was an experience. It just had such a great graphics, such atmospheric music, and enjoyable gameplay. There's one bit where you're riding on the back of some sort of sea dragon, and then things are coming towards you, and eventually like bonks you back onto the land. And yeah, well, there's platforming jumping as well and things like that. But yeah, it was a really special game. That's one of my favourites on the Saturn, definitely.
Speaking of graphics, 3D graphics on the Saturn, Burning Rangers.
Oh yeah, that was a good game.
What were your impressions of Burning Rangers?
I loved it. Yeah, I mean, again, it was a bit pixelated because it was a Saturn. I like Burning Rangers. I mean, it wasn't 100%. There seemed to be some gaming issues with it, but I thought it was really enjoyable. It drew me in. I played it a lot. I'm not sure if they did a sequel. I can't remember, but yeah, that was a good game. So you obviously remember that one.
Yeah, that was a great game. I've got that as well.
Yeah, that was good, Burning Rangers.
It's quite tough. I recall it being quite tough. I don't know, like you're saying, whether that's just due to the fact that it sort of struggled a little bit with the mechanics and stuff. But yeah,
I got the impression that it wasn't 100%. You get some games you just think it hasn't quite been programmed 100% right, but no, it was enjoyable. You got some, like you do even in modern games, you get little graphical errors, don't you? But that doesn't bother me too much.
Yeah.
But no, it was a good game. Yeah, it was clever as well. It was different, wasn't it? More or less putting out fires more than anything.
Yeah.
Just blasting things. But
I remember the you'd like double jump boost, and that was quite. They got the mechanics for that. It felt good, but sort of landing it on a shelf much higher up was quite a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you've got to have had a world that you want to explore. You want to find out more. That's the whole thing, isn't it? It's not just I want to get to the next level. You want to see what's there. You want to see what's around the corner. You're drawn into the world, and I think that game did that quite well.
Yeah, there's a level of intensity to it as well, wasn't it? Because I remember it was quite dark, and you'd have to press a button to jump out the way when you heard like shh, and there's just like an explosion that would just hit you out of the blue if you didn't press jump. And
I can remember the first Tomb Raider game was on the Saturn. They got a month jump on the PS on the PlayStation.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I thought they ported it to Saturn. That's interesting.
No, it came out earlier. I remember at the time thinking, oh, good, we're actually getting, because from fairly early on, you got the impression that the Saturn was lagging behind in software and perhaps commercial support than the PS, because Sony were always a massive company. Sony were so much bigger than Sega, as a company. So, but it was I can remember playing Tomb Raider. That's the thing. It's the only Tomb Raider game I really played all the way through and enjoyed was that first one, and it was good. Yeah. Again, by modern standards, very pixelated and plain. But no, it was. I can remember there was always one section where you'd run it. A lot of it was in tunnels and tombs and things, but sometimes you go out in the open. And there's this T-Rex sort of hanging around, but you couldn't take it on, so you have to go. So then what I did was, I can remember, it's just like a little clever. I just remember it really well. I spotted fairly on this, there was like a little cave, so I jumped in there. If you went right to the back of the cave, the T-Rex couldn't quite reach it, but you could like dig away at it with your weapons, sort of just get it down a bit. Eventually, you'd kill it, but there's no way you could just run out and fire your weapons or whatever weapons you had and win. Yeah, it was a challenging game. And just little things like when you look down a ledge, I think it was a rule that I didn't find out until later. If you could see your shadow down there, you could jump without taking injury. You couldn't, and you jump down, your hit points or your health went. But that was good. That was a good game. It's another one that sort of I took a lot of time to find out.
That was a big game when it came out. I remember it everywhere, just advertising.
Yeah.
Have a sort of really big cardboard cutouts of Lara Croft. And
I
that was
suppose
a
it's
massive
the
game
first
when it came out.
big female hero for games, wasn't she? And she obviously very attractive, so that was all the appeal. Quite sensibly doing it like that, but yeah.
And Metroid lady, can't remember her name though.
Yeah. No, I think it's a shame that the films never came up to the game. It's like most games that go into films often don't work, do they?
No, it's true. Did you see Doom, the film?
No, it was that with The Rock in it.
Yeah. Do you know what? Yeah. It's a little bit trashy, but it's a fun watch. If you just want to put something on, it's going to be a bit of a B movie, but with a slightly larger budget. It's just them traipsing around shooting things, basically.
Yeah,
that's all right for a laugh if you just want like a B movie type action film.
Yeah, I usually think if The Rock's in it, it's probably not going to be much crap. I'm sure he's a lovely guy in that, but most of the films he makes are rubbish, aren't they?
He's not the main character though. The main character's the guy that played Éomer in Lord of the Rings.
All right.
I forgot his name now, but he's the main character.
Oh yeah. Oh, isn't that?
The Rock's like the sergeant guy. I don't want to spoil it.
He's the guy that plays Bones in Star Trek, isn't it? Same actor,
yes,
isn't it?
Yeah, him. I forgot his name.
Yeah, me too. But yeah.
I can't believe we've gone so far into a Sega talk without bringing up House of the Dead.
House of the Dead, yes. What is it? So I think you're referring to the little session at Namco Wonder Park.
Was,
playing that, I think. But yeah, House of the Dead 2, wasn't it, on the Dreamcast?
The first one was on the Saturn as well, I think.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I think on the and also there was Virtua Cop, wasn't there? Do you remember that?
Virtua Cop, yeah. I think I had this. I think
the sequel,
the second one. Yeah.
Yeah, Virtua Cop. Is that Saturn or Dreamcast?
Definitely Saturn because I still got it.
yeah. But yeah, that was good. I quite like those two games. I thought they played well. I slightly prefer Virtua Cop as for gameplay. Although I like the subject matter. But yeah, House of the Dead 2 on the Dreamcast was spot on.
I miss all the. You don't really get these sort of peripheral gun controllers anymore. But then I know
No,
that the Switch kind of has one, but it's not the same.
no.
Yeah.
They, yeah, what they had there was another game as well. I can't remember what it was called of the light gun variety, which was very good, but it's gone out of my head what it was. But yeah, I think House of the Dead 2. And do you remember there was like a House of the Dead game where it was more like a sort of walk around shoot 'em up? Where you invest. It's like 3D-ish, but not out. Wasn't
Hmm.
first person. It was like looking down
No, I
isometrically, and
didn't
you
know
were
that.
wandering around. It was House of the Dead themed. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it
Is
was
there
two
typing
player.
of the dead as well?
Oh yeah, I've heard of that, but what do you
No,
want to do
yeah, I've
that
never
for?
played that.
Yeah, I think that's a Japanesey type thing. But no, there was another one, House of Dead. Say shoot 'em up, come wander around adventure. It was really good actually. It had a lot of atmosphere. It wasn't as good as the light gun probably, but
Mm,
yeah. But yeah, there was a lot to be said for House of the Dead. But
mm.
one go I think is Will, as mentioned on the Dreamcast, and I think it was on the Nintendo 64. I can't remember. Called Banjo O. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's
Yes, yeah,
BANGA-O.
yeah.
That is a really good shoot 'em up. I don't know if you ever played it.
I have. We've
It
got it. I think we got it
yeah,
on your recommendation.
yeah, yeah. So it's really good because basically you're just flying around this. It's like a 2D world, but you've got like little buildings all around the outside, and you're flying around. It's just some sort of bizarre world, but it really plays well, and it's a real challenge as well. Really good game. But
Nice.
yeah, I can't remember. I don't know if that's Treasure. It might be a Treasure game. I can't remember. But no, that was a real classic. I think it may have come out on Nintendo first, but no, the Dreamcast version, I mean,
Mm,
was really good, and it was different because they weren't trying to impress graphically. They
mm.
just went for a really good game. Well, they did have some nice graphical touches, but some
Yeah,
games are obviously made to try and show this is how good the system is.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Virtua Tennis.
Virtua Tennis, yeah, that was pretty good. I can remember that was a good
Yeah,
two-player co-op game as well,
yeah,
especially playing doubles. That'd be a bit of fun.
yeah. It looked good as well.
Yeah. I've played that a fair bit, mainly with my wife who used to play that quite a bit.
Mm, good game.
Obviously, Tech Romance. We were talking about that the other day. That's
Yeah.
really. Yeah, I was watching it. Funny enough, I was watching a video of that earlier on and thinking, yeah, I really enjoy that game. You can see why it appeals so much.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think that the Dreamcast was fantastic for all those sort of bright, coloured, arcadey, Japanesey type
Yeah,
games, and Power Stone,
definitely.
definitely
How's that
great.
1 and 2? Yeah,
Yeah, and two was so different to the first one, but they're both
yeah,
good games in their own rights. Really, the first one
definitely.
was more of a beat 'em up, wasn't it? And the second one, which is also a beat 'em up as well, but it was a bit more. You go through levels, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Different levels, and it's sort of half co-op with your opponents, half trying to beat them.
yeah. I quite like the a type of game I've enjoyed, which I've mentioned a few, is that what I call the isometric view 3D, rather than you're not
Mm,
seeing it as you're looking down an angle, but it's a 3D operated game.
yeah.
There was a shooter one called Cannon Spike. I think it was called something else, Gun Spike, depending on which country you were. But that
Okay.
again, it was very atmospheric. Sort of, you find yourself in an area, like a
Mm,
courtyard or a park or a building, and you just had to whiz around, surviving and shooting everything. But it had a real good atmosphere to it. It was quite dark. That was that again. I think that was only on him, but I think they might have done a German, not German, American version. Don't think it made it over here, but yeah, that was really enjoyable and a bit different, for
mm,
than
mm.
your standard. If you like me and like shoot 'em up, so it makes a change from just up the screen or across the screen, which I do like those as well. But it's nice to have that. I think those sort of 3D isometric view games,
Yeah.
those sort of undervalued in a way.
Yeah. They work really well.
Talking about shoot 'em ups, which I do a lot. My all-time favourite shoot 'em up on the Dreamcast and possibly on most machines was called Zero Gunner 2. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that one
Oh
to
no,
you.
I don't know that one. What's that
Yeah, it
like?
was. I don't know where Zero Gunner ever existed, but Zero Gunner 2 was again an import game, Japanese import game on the Dreamcast. And what was good about it was like top-down sort of script, but you could scroll up, down, left, and right. But your vehicle was a helicopter, so it could rotate on its axis. So you could go along and you could fire on a 360 degree by turning. And again, it's a bit like, in Shock Troopers where you can either strafe or you can turn around. But
Mm.
this thing, you could turn around all the way around.
Oh,
And
okay.
so it's sort of scrolling. You have to go through, but it wasn't like super fast scrolling. And it's just a really good game. Yeah, it was. That's why some people won't think it is a classic, sort of shoot 'em up. I just think it was so much fun, and just having that sort of extra ability of being able to spin round. It had, rather than just blasting, moving left to right, up and down. You had to actually, you had to aim, and again, the graphics were really good. There's lots of giant mechs and things like that. There's enemies and that. You remember the one bit, there's like a train comes along with and it opens up, massive guns and cannons and machine guns, and that sort of thing. It was a really good game. Zero Gun 2. Again, I'd say it's one of its best classic shoot-'em ups on the Dreamcast. But well worth looking that up if you ever fancy that type of game. There was another one which had a slightly less. It was called Under Defeat, which I always thought was a funny name for Under Defeat.
Under Defeat.
Yeah, Under Defeat, but it just sounds like you're saying under the feet, doesn't it? Anyway, so that was of a similar ilk, but you could only change your right to fire over about a 90-degree, so you could fire a bit left and a bit right and straight on. And it wasn't quite as good as Zero Gun 2, but it was still very challenging and some really nice graphics. So again, another good There's just so many import sort of shoot 'em ups that came out. Another one was called Trigger Heart Excelica. Very much an anime. There was sort of you could fire out like an anchor and then grab hold of things and pull them and stuff like that, as well as shooting and the usual flying up screen shooting. Again, and it was very technical. All sorts of things moving in weird patterns and stuff like that you had to get through. But, yeah, there was a lot of them. I can't even remember half the names of half of them, but there were so many different games. Some of them become very collectible, over the years. But
the Dreamcast had lots of RPGs on it as well. I remember all sorts of RPGs that came out on that.
Yeah, I remember you were quite a big fan of one of them. Which one was it you liked?
Grandia 2.
Grandia 2, yeah. Yeah, I tend to like the strategy ones where when you get into a combat situation, you've got like a hexagonal or squared board type of thing, and you move around.
Yeah.
And it's like a bit old-fashioned sort of war game almost. But when I was much younger, I used to do role-playing games, with dice and figures. It's a bit like that, but it was really. You get other ones where you just had your character standing one end, their character, and you just chose who to attack. And they just ran in, did an attack. But when you actually had strategy, which again, my favourite role-playing game, probably of all time, was on the Saturn. Oh, this name's gone over head now. I was going to say, what was it called now? Anyway, it's gone now. But that had a really good strategy-based combat. It was a very atmospheric game, but being the Saturn
strategy game.
Yeah, it was.
Mysteria?
That's it, Mysteria, as I called it. Yeah, that had another name, Blazing Dragons or something in America, or something like that. Anyway, that was I just really liked it. Great music. I said the graphics were a bit pixelated because they were 3D, but really nice little story, ongoing. Obviously, buy weapons and all this sort of thing. So it had all that RP, but the combat was really good. And you really had to think how you're going to do things. But yeah. I've recently downloaded the game. I told you I still haven't got around to playing it yet, but I'll need time on my own to play this. But I had a quick go on the combat. It looked good, but not quite as good as Mysteria. But no, Mysteria was a bit of a classic, really. But nobody's ever heard of it or knows about it. But I thought it wasn't as good. I mean, the Saturn had some really lovely 2D sort of RPGs on it as well. With the really lovely anime sort of drawings. But that was 3D, so it sort of went away from that. But it just made up for it with a really good atmosphere. But yeah, probably the most enjoyable role-playing game. I think by the time I got to Dreamcast, I wasn't really into role-playing games that much. Do you remember the Panzer Dragoon? That's a thing that went from Saturn onto Dreamcast. Did it go onto Dreamcast?
Yeah, I remember you talking about it a lot back in the day.
Yeah, there was Panzer Dragoon, Panzer Dragoon Sly, which is German for 2. And then there was Panzer Dragoon Saga, which was like a role-playing game, and that was actually quite good. It was a whole world. I think that everybody liked about Panzer Dragoon was the music was so good. It was all cinematic string, because you'd be flying around sort of gently on before you got into the combat on this dragon. You know, that was your main thing, dragon, and yeah, that was. I enjoyed all three of those. I don't think it actually made on cards. I think they were all on the Saturn. But yeah, Panzer Dragoons Y and Panzer Dragoon Saga, which again became quite collectible because I think it came out in the box, and you got all sorts of little extras.
They're worth a lot of money now. Those ones.
Yeah. Yeah. And
they released a new Panzer Dragoon game. I just saw it the other day on Switch. I can't remember what it was called. I think it's on several of the new consoles.
Yeah, it's
only
on
about
PS4,
£22 or something. Yeah,
it's all really enjoyable. The Mega Drive had lots of add-ons. I don't know if you remember. It had the Mega CD or the Sega CD, depending on.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was basically a base unit with a CD drive on the right-hand side. I think it was. And you plonked your Mega Drive on it, and it connected obviously electronically, and it gave you CD and extra bits. And then also they brought out a thing called the 32X, which added. I think you plugged it into the cartridge drive on your Mega Drive, and it gave you more 32 bits of, and then you plugged the game in on the top. I don't think that could work with the Sega CD. But yeah, I don't know. I sometimes think these were marketing errors. I don't think they didn't support them well enough, or they weren't.
Especially if you're about to bring out the Saturn and you bring out CD on the Mega Drive.
Yeah, I think the 32X came out in '94, and so did the Saturn in Japan. So it's like a bit point. I suppose it might be thought, well, why not have to lash out for the Saturn? You can pay a fair bit less, I guess. But it's add on there.
Yeah, that just seems odd. Another bad decision.
I think the Sega CD came out in Japan about '91, so that's quite early. I don't think we got it till '93 or something. But yeah, it was different. I didn't get any of those add-ons at the time.
I remember Sonic and Knuckles on the Mega Drive. You could lift the top of the cartridge back and stick another Sonic game in it, and then it unlocked different things in the game.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, I remember because I picked that up for about £4 or £5 at a boot sale. I was like, oh, the top comes off. Someone was like, yeah, just stick another Sonic game in it and see what happens.
Yeah, and also you could they brought an extra memory thing out. You could use on was it on the Saturn?
Yeah, I think there was a slot in the back of the Saturn for a memory.
And you could put a cartridge in for like extra. It was like so. I remember. I think it might have been Waku Waku 7. Semi-sequel to Galaxy Fight. If you wanted to run it at full whack, you had to use this memory card. And even then, it wasn't quite Neo Geo standard, but it was still better frame rate because it didn't have the internal.
A lot of people whinge about the Neo Geo ports to Saturn, but I thought Galaxy Fight on the Saturn worked really well. I didn't play Waku Waku 7 on the Saturn though.
No, I did have it, and I got the memory card specifically for it. I picked it up secondhand, I think. But anyway, I think that was just in the 32X and the Sega CD were a bit like marketing errors which must have cost a lot to develop, and because in those days consoles came out quite quickly. Like there's not huge gaps like you get now between the PS3, PS4. It's quite a big gap, and I've heard there's talk of a PS5, but
yeah, that's about to come out. I think probably they'll probably push it to next year. But...
Yeah, I mean, but in those days, you tended about every 3 years you got the next console, didn't you? Really. So, but when the Mega Drive came out, and even the Saturn, games weren't as mainstream as they are now. I mean, they were getting that way, but they weren't as big as they are now. As you know, it's bigger than movies, isn't it?
I remember I discovered the hard way that the Sega Saturn takes one of those really large watch batteries for its memory.
Yeah. Yes.
And I about 3 or 4 years down the line, and I sort of lost all the stuff on Guardian Heroes and everything. I was like, no. Yeah, it takes one of those watch batteries, and I didn't know about the memory card that goes in the back. Yeah, so it did little
Uh,
interesting things about the way that some of those older consoles work.
yeah, it's funny. I've completely off subject, as you know. I've got a music sequencer called the QY700, and
Mm.
that's got a battery thing in it for the memory, which is supposed to last about up to 8 years. And mine's about 25 years old and it's still going. I'm just dreading one day it's going to run, because you can't just like buy a battery and it has to be like taken apart and fitted in. But years ago, I found a guy who said he could do it. You know, it was a shop.
Mm.
It's still going, right? So I thought it was going on, you know, we're going off a bit of subject, but yes,
So-
but yeah, it's annoying when a console goes. That is the one thing about Neo Geo, the old MV, the old not MVS, the adult entertainment system, being a cartridge. It just seems to just keep going. You know, you don't hear many of them conking out on you.
yeah, yeah.
And another thing I don't like, well, it's not just Sega, but a lot of consoles, they bring out like cheaper versions. They bring out the first one, then we've got the slimline version. No, you
Yeah,
mean cheaper, you know? And it's they cut down on stuff on it and just say it's
definitely.
something special. No, it isn't. You're better off with the
Yeah.
original. But
It's the other way around now. Because I've got a PlayStation 4 Pro,
yeah,
which
oh,
is
that's
bigger
right.
than
Yeah,
the PlayStation, and
yeah. I think I got the Pro when I got it.
yeah, it's much bigger. But then again, like you're saying, I'd rather, why not just bring out the Pro as the standard console and then
Yeah,
buy that rather than wait a year down the line for it. It's like, well, if you know you're going to make it, then they wouldn't make more money that way, I guess. But
yeah. I remember buying a memory extension thing for my 360. You know, so I think you just wedged it on the side.
hmm.
But no, I mean, I was funny because I sort of was losing interest. I wasn't going to get PS3 when that came out, and I just went in the shop, game shop, and they were running Motorstorm. Do you remember that off-road racing game?
I don't know that one.
It came out pretty much with the machine. I saw that thing. Yeah, I'm getting that. So that got me to get the PS3, and then
Have you played
yeah, back to.
any modern games that Sega have published or have developed? I suppose
I'm
more
just trying to
published than
think.
developed.
No, I mean, I think after the Dreamcast, there was one game. No, I don't think that was a Sega game. No, I can't think of any offhand. I mean, I like Sega as a console,
Mm.
but I don't particularly look out for their games.
Yeah, I
They
have to
bring out
admit,
Mega Drive. You get a Mega Drive collection on every console, don't you?
you do, yeah.
Yeah, and I think we had one on the Dreamcast, and there's one on the PS4.
I
But
don't
yeah,
know
I
why
mean,
they don't do that with Dreamcast games and
yeah,
Saturn games. They might as well just, here's our entire library, give us lots of money, because people would do it.
yeah.
It must be a
Is that?
licensing thing, I guess, but it's mind you, it's been a long time. They tend to run out licenses and
Yeah.
different copyright laws. They sort of run out. There's contract agreements and things.
Well, it's not like they're making any money from those old games. They've sold the ones they're going to sell. They're not making any more. So why don't they just, even if they've got like 10%, be
Yeah,
something, wouldn't it?
yeah. Well, that's the thing. If they did what they do in the Neo Geo and they're only 5-6 quid, they'd be
Mm.
raking it in because people just buying them up left, right, and centre.
Because they're a relatively small company as well, so it'll be beneficial for them. Whereas like
And
Sony,
the
they're a huge
last,
company.
they're releasing lots of Sonic games that are just worse and worse as they go. I just don't even bother with Sonic games. It's got all the characters have gone a bit funny as well. Knuckles is massive, and yeah, so it's all a bit sad. I don't really bother with that. But there's a game they didn't develop it, but they released it through Sega is Alien Isolation, which is an amazing game, a really good game. That's the only sort of modern game with Sega tied to it that I've been impressed by. It was really good.
Which one was that?
More like Alien Isolation. It's very much like the first
Right.
film, so you're sort of being hunted, but that comes later on. So you know all the androids that are in Alien. There's like a B type company that's very similar to that, and there's loads of androids walking around. They go a bit funny at first, and you're sort of having to avoid or try and destroy these little androids that are trying to murder you. And then later on, you're sort of running from a single alien that's hunting you down. And quite clever little mechanic. It would sort of get smarter the further you went along in the game. So you'd be it would learn things that you were doing. It was quite clever. And that was really well done. But they didn't develop it. I think they just released it. And sort of
Who's it who did Dead or Alive? Was that Konami?
That's a very good question. Let's have a look. Team Ninja and published by Tecmo.
Oh well, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tecmo. They did a couple of games for Neo Geo, funnily enough. Tecmo, a football game, I think. But yes, no, I don't know why Dead or Alive came. I was just perhaps thinking they might have been Sega, but they weren't, obviously.
Yeah, the Dead or Alive games got really good. Again, it's not so much. There was the second one was on the Dreamcast, wasn't it? But the third one, which came out on the original Xbox, was really good. And we played 6 on the channel, Dead or Alive 6. That was really good as well. I think the counter system is the best I've seen in a fighting game, the one in Dead or Alive. It was just very fluid. But yeah, it's not Sega.
Yeah.
It's very easy to talk about anything other than Sega, strangely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose in a way they've sort of just become a software company. And you don't, I mean, apart from, I suppose, I mean, I don't know, I think also that they did some pretty good, or whether they actually developed them on their systems, they had some quite good puzzle games, you know, like Columns. I still think Columns is one of my favourite puzzle games. It's just very entertaining. It's just simple, you know, 3 things coming down, gets faster, and it was a really clever game. What was that? Your dog?
Dog barking outside.
All right.
Probably
And
a cat.
Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, there was. I know everybody was very much into Tetris, weren't they? But I was always preferred Columns.
What was there was a puzzle game very similar on the Saturn, and it had an animation of something at the side.
Oh yeah, Baku Animal.
That's it.
Yeah, because every time they have the Formula One in Azerbaijan, the town's called Baku.
Oh,
and they say, Baku Animal. Yeah. Once you landed, the little animals would eat the other things. Yeah, it was like a dog or a chimp.
They used to grind their teeth.
Yeah. Waiting for some food. Yeah. Yeah, that was a good game. Again, what Columns like, but more wacky and entertaining. Yeah. I'm like, I think I quite like sort of puzzle games like that. And a really old game called Breakout, which was basically a bouncing ball which you had to knock back to destroy. Do you ever remember that one? Yeah, a ball would come on, and it would hit. You have a bat which moved along the bottom, or a paddle, as some people call it.
Yeah,
you hit. So depending on how fast you're moving and where you put it on your paddle, was at what angle it bounced back, and you're basically just trying to get rid of, destroy these slowly lowering blocks. But it was really cool. I think it might have been an Atari game, but that made it on a few different consoles. There was a version of it on the Neo Geo, but no, it was. I'm sure I've seen something on the more modern consoles. Obviously, the graphics have all been bumped up, and there's all sorts of weird things going on. But yeah, I just like those sort of simple puzzle games.
Should we get your top 5 for each of those Sega consoles? Perhaps bar the Master System, since you didn't have one.
Well, no, I didn't have one of those. And apart from that game which I won, I think Mega Drive. It'd have to be Gunstar Heroes, Streets of Rage 1 and 2, Golden Axe. It sounds a bit pathetic, doesn't it? I'm just trying to think what else.
Did you ever play the X-Men game? The X-Men sort of going along.
Shoot 'em, like a fighting game.
Yeah.
I played that. There was an arcade version of that. I think it was Konami possibly did it, but no, I didn't. Was it on the Mega Drive?
No, that was on the Saturn, but there was one that wasn't a fighting game. It was scrolling along, almost like a scrolling along beat 'em up. But you'd be like Wolverine and Gambit.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's got what we used to call walk along beat 'em ups. But yeah, I didn't know that was on the.
Yeah, I've still got that somewhere. That was really good. Difficult.
That's all I can think of, to be honest.
I've got a couple of more obscure ones. I don't know if you've heard of them. Warlock. Did you ever play Warlock?
No, I've not heard that one.
There's one called Alicia Dragoon.
Oh yeah, I remember that vaguely. Was that a role playing?
Yeah, it was like platformer, and you could like shoot lightning and stuff. That was pretty.
Yeah.
Cool. 5 on the Saturn.
Radiant Silvergun.
Yeah.
Best shoot 'em up. One of the best shoot 'em ups all the time. Virtualon, obviously, wonderful game. Astal, the most sort of atmospheric, sort of magical game I've ever played. Silhouette Mirage, and I'd probably put in Sonic and Sonic R. Yeah, I think.
Nice, brilliant. Dreamcast.
Dreamcast. Sorry, I was going to say the original Tomb Raider was very good.
Yeah.
But Dreamcast, that's a good one. Zero Gunner 2, Jet Set Radio, Technomancer's got to be in there, hasn't it?
Nice.
Power Stone. Which one was the more the adventure than the fighting? That's 2, wasn't
Second
it?
one, yeah.
Yeah, Power Stone 2 then. Banjo, I think, would be in there as well.
Nice. No Crazy Taxi?
Oh, yeah. We haven't mentioned that, have we? Yeah, I don't know. It was a great game. I mean, I really loved it. I think the ones I mentioned I like more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I know they made all sorts of sequels, and I think that came out on the Xbox as well. But no, the original one on the it came out at similar sort of time as Jet Set Radio, and those 2 games were really good. But Jet Set Radio was better, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like skating and I don't like graffiti, but it just it just came out of the blue. I thought, I'll have a go on that because it just had a cool title. Jet Set Radio, it sounds cool.
Yeah.
It was just such a good game, really good world, really well. You could get around pretty much wherever you wanted on this thing. Yeah, it was a spot on game. That
the Wacky Races come out on the Dreamcast.
Yeah, yes, I had that. Yeah, it was not bad actually. It was I think it was Greg, somebody. There's a comedian that was quite popular in the 80s and 90s. I think it's Canadian or American. Used to be on that. Whose Line Is It Anyway? Greg something.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, I think he did the voices because obviously the original Wacky Races commentator probably long dead, But he did a good job. It was fairly close, and it was sort of it was an into the screen sort of racing game with occasionally get views. But no, I liked it. I mean, it wasn't a classically great game mechanics, but it worked, and I like I always played the Creepy Coop because that was my favourite. My favourite on the programme was the Creepy Coop, and so I played. I like an artistic way of doing something once it works, on games. It doesn't always have to be super realistic or super flashy. You can get some really nice sort of atmospheric graphics from quite simple techniques, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Dreamcast had loads of really atmospheric games, and some I kind of remember the title. I remember getting some really obscure Japanese ones, and even though you couldn't really understand what was going on, it was just so atmospheric, and you just plow on regardless and try and complete them. But
you used to have a Japanese Dreamcast as well, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I had at one time. I had 2 UK ones and a Japanese one. I think Karen, as I said, just in case one breaks down, Karen picked me one up second hand. But yeah, I mean, I had a ton of as you know, I sold off a lot of my game stuff. But yeah, I used to have loads of. Had about 6 different controllers, a lot of those memory cards, and I had the Virtual-On thing. That was on the Dreamcast, yeah. But yeah, I had a lot of. But yeah, you could get a disc so you could play foreign games on them.
Yeah, that's what I had. I've still got some.
Some of them came with one magazine gave them away, but I think the companies were worried you were going to use it to play bootleg games.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I remember. But no, yeah, it was good. But mainly I tended to play the Japanese one because most of my games were Japanese. But at the time, I think I had them both. But yeah, one thing I did think, because you got to remember that the Dreamcast, it went over the old cathode ray TVs. Cathode ray TVs like the old biggies. That's what we had when it first came out, and then later on came the. But I was impressed when I plugged my Dreamcast into the monster widescreen, flat screen television. It looked good.
Yeah.
It didn't look. I thought it might make it look pixelated rubbish, but it didn't. It looked good. Yeah, but actually, my Neo Geo looked quite good on it. It looks quite good on it as well. Because you think, oh no, it's going to really drag out. But it doesn't. No, they actually look pretty good. Oh, but the Dreamcast, yeah, that's quite a powerful machine. And there still are people producing little indie games for it.
Yeah.
But I can't remember when they stopped producing official games, but it went on. But it died. How long did it last in this country? I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and it died.
Yeah.
Really.
Terrible advertising campaigns, like putting it on the front of Arsenal's T-shirt strip and just silly things like that.
It just puts all the other teams' fans off it, then, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. If you're going to do that, stick it on a big team like United or Liverpool or something, where around the world at least they're watched. Don't stick it on Arsenal. It's just.
Well, I mean, not really funny, but that must have cost a lot of money as well. But yeah, no, because it was like this is. Even when it came out, this was like Sega's last attempt to be in the console market. So fingers crossed. And
felt like they could have just put that money into something else. Why do what they did? It just seems odd. But then
Yeah,
they
I
make loads
agree.
of odd decisions. So.
But yeah, I mean, in this country, particularly, the Mega Drive was really the only successful machine they ever brought out. The other two failed. The Saturn had a bit of a run, but the PlayStation always outsold it. But for 3D games, outperformed it really, which is a shame because it was a powerful 2D machine and reasonable at 3D, and it had some great games. But no, it.
Can't believe you've also gone this far into a Sega talk after doing the Neo Geo one. We've not brought up Capcom versus SNK.
Capcom versus SNK, yeah. I must admit, I think I bought one of those, but as I said, I'm not a massive one-on-one fighting fan, and those games you tend to have the Fatal Furies, King of Fighters characters, which I mean, the King of Fighters is an amazing series. No, is it technically a very good game? It looks good graphically and some great characters in it, but it never grabbed me. As you said, I've always been preferred the ones that are a little bit surreal or wacky or just, but still good games. It's got to still play well. For years, I thought, why can't they just take some of the old games and keep the gameplay the same? Just make the graphics modern, the same.
Yeah.
But I mean, in some they do it occasionally. Well, they do it on the fighting games because they're still essentially just 2D fighting games with like a 3D look to them with lovely graphics and I think that. But Sega haven't done. I mean, say Streets of Rage, that could. I just don't know anybody doesn't like that game, and yet what have they done with it? Nothing really.
Just absolutely ridiculous how they've not marketed and.
Yeah,
I know they've just released one, but I mean it's cheap as well. It's only 20 odd quid. Yeah, that's a good point. It's got 9 out of 10 on Steam.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, developed by Tom Dotemu. Continuation of Sega's Streets of Rage series. I have a feeling we've exhausted Sega.
Yeah, I think Sega's.
It's so easy to go off and talk about other stuff than Sega. But
yeah.
Thanks for joining us for our Sega talk. Thanks, Graham. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.